Hello and welcome to video 11 of our AS level economics videos, and here we look at cross elasticity of demand, or maybe you know that as cross price elasticity of demand, abbreviated to XED. Cross elasticity of demand measures the responsiveness of demand for a good when another good changes price. We ask what happens to this good's demand when some related good changes price. There's no change in price of the good that we're looking at, but its demand is affected when other goods around it change price. That's what cross elasticity of demand is all about. So the definition of cross elasticity of demand is it measures the responsiveness of demand for good A when good B changes price. And cross elasticity of demand can be measured in two ways. There are two equations we can use to calculate cross elasticity of demand. Let's look at those. Firstly, we can say that cross elasticity of demand for good A is P over Q times change in Q over change in P, which is exactly the same equation as with PED. However, we have to say we're looking at the quantity of good A when good B changes price. Okay? So I find it easier to remember this equation by writing out the equation for PED, but then remembering I'm looking at the demand, the quantity of A when B changes price. The other equation we can use, cross elasticity of demand for good A, is percent change in the quantity of A divided by percent change in the price of B. Again, it's the same equation as with PED, but we're looking at good A's quantity and good B's price change. Okay, so that's how we calculate the value of XED. Now we must consider the interpretation of these values of XED. We get the number out, what does it mean? Well, we need to look at the sign and the size of the number. First of all, if this calculation produces a positive number, if it's positive, it means that the goods are substitutes for each other. Substitute goods are in competitive demand, consumers buy one or the other. Coke and Pepsi, for example. But if the calculation turns out to be negative, give a negative value, then we say the goods are complements to each other. Goods which are bought together are complements. They are in joint demand. Perhaps an example might be coffee and sugar. Salt and pepper, perhaps. So, first thing to look at is the sign. Is it positive, is it negative? That will tell us whether the goods are complements or substitutes. Secondly, we look at the size of the number. Now, when looking at the size of the number, irrespective of whether it's positive or negative, we aren't that concerned about is it bigger or smaller than 1, which is the case with other elasticity calculations. Here, all we say is that the bigger the number is, the stronger is the connection between the two goods. And the smaller the number is, the weaker is the connection. Now, there is no magic threshold over which something means something. All I would say is that if the number is bigger than a half, or minus a half, the connection is pretty strong. I would call them strong complements or strong substitutes if that number is greater than about 0.5. But that's just me. Okay, so there we are. Now, let's take an example question then. In fact, there's two questions within this question. When laptop computers fall in price from $1,000 to $750, it's found that demand for desktop computers falls 15% and demand for computer bags rises from 12 to 15,000. So calculate and comment upon the XEDs for these two goods, desktop computers and computer bags. So we're going to study one by one. We're going to study the cross elasticity of demand for these two goods when another good, laptop computers, changes price. Let's take them one by one. I've reduced the size there. It's the same question, but first of all, let's do the calculations for desktop computers. Now, all I know about desktop computers is that the demand fell 15%. This forces me to use the second of my two equations, and that was this. XED equals percent change in quantity of A over percent change of the price of B. Well, the percent change in the price of B, well, I can see that there was a 25% fall in the price of laptop computers. So that's minus 25%. And I'm told that there was a fall in the demand for desktop computers of 15%. So that's minus 15%. Well, that's minus 15 over minus 25 leads to, of course, that creates plus, and that's 3 over 5, which is 0.6. And that's my answer. What does that tell me? I need to comment upon this. Well, the plus, we look at the sign and the size. The plus tells me that they are substitutes, and this tells me it's quite strong. I would say that they are strong substitutes. So when the price of laptops fell, the demand for desktops fell, because clearly people are going off and buying more laptops and choosing laptops over desktop computers. And they're substitutes, and they're quite strong substitutes. Now, what about the bags? Okay, same question, but now we're going to look at bags. Now I'm going to use the other equation, because I've got some actual numbers here. So I can say XED equals P over Q, but the price of B, the quantity of A, times the change in quantity of A over change in the price of B. Okay, so let me put the numbers in now. The price originally was 1,000 over the quantity of computer bags being bought was 12,000 times the change in the quantity. That was a plus 3,000, so no negatives there, and the change in the price was a drop of 250. Right, I can do some cleaning up here, and that can become 4. Yes, that's right. And that's 1, and here I can make that 1 and that 4. So 4 times is 4 over 4. Very good. That's negative equals minus 1. And that tells me, of course, the sign tells me, minus tells me that these goods are complements, and very strong complements. Every 1% drop in the price of laptops led to a 1% rise in the demand for computer bags. So a very strong complement goods. Okay, so another way we can show that information is by a diagram. The laptop computers fell in price. I've showed that by a drop in the supply curve here. Lowering the price, it fell from 1,000 to 750, and the demand rose from Q1 to Q2. Now what that led to in two separate markets was, in desktop computers, it led to a fall in the demand, for desktop computers, and the price must have fallen. We're not interested in the price of desktop computers, but we are interested to see that the quantity fell. Meanwhile, in the computer bag market, there was a sharp increase from 12,000 to 15. Oh no, that's wrong, sorry. From 12,000 to 15,000. We don't know what happened to the price. It probably rose, but there was a rise in the demand of 3,000 bags, and it's another way of showing it. We had it with numbers, but you may need to show this happening in diagrams. So of course, we're just using demand and supply diagrams as usual, and we can show what happened in our question through the diagrams. And we're starting to see links between micro markets, of course, with cross elasticity of demand. We're starting to explore concepts such as joint demand and competitive demand. And that comes up in a video shortly. Okay, so I hope that shows you about cross elasticity of demand. Remember, positive cross elasticity of demand must mean the goods are substitutes, negative means complements. That's the key point. Okay, thank you for watching, and see you in another video soon, I hope. I'll just stop my recording.